right, in honor of the Kinus Torah, just a few words. Kinus Torah is an institution, or organization, or a concept which the Rebbe established that after every Yom Tov there should be a Sofer Limud Torah. Usually it's meant to be done either on the Yom Tov itself. For example, Pesach and Sukkot usually done on Chol HaMoed. Shavuos is usually done on Isru Chag, and sometimes it gets dragged out for a few days later. So we'll just go through some questions, and afterwards we'll have Atom Mashliach Hamuda. We'll continue Mitzvah Shem. So, questions. I heard that you should not walk in the house with just socks because it's what a mourner does. Is this true? The Bach is asking that Avelin, Nebach, person that's sitting Shiva, has to walk around without proper shoes. Is that the reason? So, Al Rebbe in Shulchan Aruch, based on the Ramah, writes that brings up a pasuk, and he says, not a pasuk, it's a Maimer Chazal, but he writes the words Va'al Yelech Yochif. One should not walk barefoot. He brings another quote from Chazal, min olim miraglov, someone that doesn't have shoes on his feet, it's as if he's in chayrim from Hashem. A person should sell whatever he owns and buy shoes. So here the Rebbe is telling us how important it is to have shoes all the time and not to walk barefoot. He does not mention anything about the mourners. However, and the Mishnah Brura, he brings that he writes, in the Arab countries where people naturally often go barefoot, it's permitted. He also says that the Shalah writes that if someone is doing it because of tshuva laveinoisov, meaning he's not wearing shoes because he wants to have a kapara, it's uncomfortable to not wear shoes, so he's purposely making himself uncomfortable, it's also permitted. And also David HaMelech Alav HaShalom walked barefoot. So that's another, a few more details about it. But it seems like many poskim understand that the issue is only when you're walking in the streets, walking in the shuk. However, if you're at home, it seems to be that there isn't an issue. And even outside, they bring from Chaim Kanievsky that he says that today the minig is lahakil, based on the Mishnah Brura, that if it's not the minute, people do that. So it seems like what Alter Rebbe is saying, what the Shulchan Aruch is saying, Shulchan Aruch doesn't really apply today. So I haven't seen anyone saying this svara. I remember hearing it also, that the concern is because of it's similar to Avelus. However, I haven't seen it inside. So again, just a source for it's more about the bizayin, about the health purposes, but the pashtus, if it's no concern, is permitted. One of my former Talmidim sent me two questions, and I figured they're very nice questions, so I'll share them over here. He writes, why should a Jew be proud to be a Jew? Of course, it's very honorable to be chosen to be a Jew, and that we have a mission. But it seems to me that we are just born Jews. We didn't work for it. Generally, it seems to me that why should someone be proud of something that he didn't work for? A general in an army can be proud because he knows he spent many years in training and working to get where he is. But a Jew is a Jew no matter what. Of course, a Jew can be proud of his level of observance and the work and effort he puts into it. But that's being proud of being an observant Jew. Does that mean that a non-observant Jew should not be proud to be a Jew? Or does it make sense to just be proud of being part of a people who persisted in keeping Judaism alive throughout the years? Or is it that Hashem knows what choices every person will make, being that he transcends time and individually chooses who will be Jews, and therefore the Jew can still be thought of as a working and earning as being chosen to be a Jew? Right, it's huh? It sounds like, no, I know this Bach. He's not an AI kind of guy. He's a very thinking person, and he's a very, very good question. Summarized in short, proud seems, if I accomplish something, I'm proud of it. Being a Jew is not something that I accomplished, so what am I proud of? I'm proud of doing mitzvahs, that is so that I'm proud of doing mitzvahs. If that's the case, then whoever is not doing mitzvahs should not be proud of being a Jew? Or is it proud of being just, when he said, I know that Hashem knows what I'm going to do already? So, my answer, my opinion is as follows. When you say proud of something, the way most people say, the way this Bachar is asking, would imply indeed that I'm proud of what I accomplished. And in that sense, yeah, if I'm not an observant Jew, or if I'm not proud of what I accomplished, then there's no reason to be proud. But really, proud doesn't necessarily mean that. Proud can mean a certain satisfaction and awareness of my worth. Al derech dugma, very often someone can say, I'm a proud grandmother. He didn't do anything to be proud. He's not proud of any achievement. He didn't accomplish anything. The fact that I have grandchildren, I'm proud of them. You're proud of them because they're so successful? As we all know, everybody will say that their Einiklach are the best Einiklach. Proud means I'm happy about something that I have. So the regular way of using proud indeed is only applies to someone that accomplished something. But when we say I'm proud to be a Jew, a Goin Yaakov, over here it's more about being aware and being happy of the fact that we are who we are. So it's like people say about self-confidence or self-esteem. A person is self-confident. What are you so confident about? I have self-esteem. Esteem is another word for respecting myself. What are you respecting yourself about? There's a certain realization that Hashem created me, and that realization of who I am is already something important. And I'm aware of it, and I'm happy with it, of what I have. And this applies to Lahavdil, every human being. The fact that Hashem made me a Jew gives me a special pride, a special happiness, and awareness of who I am. So in my understanding, it's not connected to the observance. That's something else that someone might be proud of. Says a person should not really pride himself or praise himself for things that he accomplished, only by serving of Hashem. But that's another thing that you're proud of. You're praising yourself. You feel accomplished from your mitzvahs. But here we're talking about something else. Here we're talking about that what we hear, meaning when we talk about the concept of being proud of it, to be a Jew is not, in my understanding, not proud in the sense of I accomplished something, proud in that I'm aware of who I am, and I'm thankful to what Hashem created me, who I am, and that gives me an inner happiness. That's one question. Second question, in today's Chumash, in Rashi, he says in regards to the firstborn, that after they sinned with the golden calf, he took the Levim instead of the firstborn. I heard before, it's not today, this is yesterday, I think, right? I heard before that it was the Erev Rav that sinned with the golden calf. If so, why were all the tribes besides Levi punished in the sense that for their position was given to the Levim? So his question, in other words, is that we say that the Erev Rav are the ones that did Chet HaEgel. If so, how come it says, Rashi says that no, the other Shvatim sinned, and therefore it was taken away from them, and it was given to the Levim. But if only the Erev Rav sinned and no other Shvatim sinned, so why is Levi getting the B'chayras Aveda? So the answer by Pashtus is that even though it says the Erev Rav sinned, it doesn't mean that only they sinned. It means that the Erev Rav are the ones that instigated. They're the ones that made they pushed for the Chet HaEgel. But unfortunately, after they did Chet HaEgel, it seems like there were other members of Klal Yisrael proper that indeed went along with the Chet HaEgel. And it doesn't mean that the entire Bechlal, this is we see the Chumash, in the Chumash and Kisisa, you see, it doesn't mean that the entire group of Klal Yisrael, 600,000 Yidden, did Chet HaEgel. The number that it says over there that were actually killed, that originally was only 3,000, a very small amount of Yidden that were responsible, that actually participated a full percent in Chet HaEgel. It says that what was unique about Shevet Levi is that Shevet Levi, not even one member of their Shevet ended up participating in Chet HaEgel, which seems to imply that it could be that the other Shvatim, Reuven, Shimon, Yehuda, Issachar, Zvulun, and so on, maybe by them also, almost nobody served Chet HaEgel, maybe only one person in the entire Shevet, and that was already enough to lose the whole Shevet, their status of their prayer serving in the Mishkan. That's what's transferred to Levi. We don't know the numbers of how many people from each Shevet participated in Chet HaEgel. By Chet Baal Po'er, it says that Shimon was a big part of it, but Chet HaEgel, I don't know numbers, so the Pashas, I would assume that is indeed a very small amount of numbers of other Shvatim, but that was enough to, so to speak, contaminate each Shevet versus Shevet Levi that remained pure. That's where they got this. That's my understanding.
You say that this is part of like the Levim have the responsibility to keep them.
And the Levim have the responsibility too. Oh, they didn't have responsibility yet. I never heard that svara, but that could be a svara, that the B'chayrim had a responsibility, so since the people then they didn't go around stopping it, they were punished. And now we're giving someone else to be responsible, and Shevet Levi will see what if he'll do a better job. Could be that's a pshat. Never. And you see that the Pinchas later Taka did that, he was stood up for it. That could be a pshat, never saw a pshat.
Do you think if one person, like if one Shevet did sin, all they have the same status as the Levim?
That's all we understand. Because it's clear that it says that Shevet Levi was unique. They were the only Shevet that entirely, not even one person served. In a way, it's easier because they were a smaller Shevet, only 22,000 people. Everyone else had at least 10, 15,000 more. They were 22,000 from babies till adults, till all of them. Other Shvatim, just from 20 to 60, the other smaller Shevet was, 32, 33. That means altogether it's probably 60, 70. So in a way, they had an easier time. It's a small group of people. But L'Poyel, it's understood that yes, if any other Shevet would have been completely not involved in Chet HaEgel, they would have been the same status as Shevet Levi. Question. The Rebbe is the last generation of Golus. How long can a generation be? This is a very, very tough question to answer. When you count the generations, Bechlal, throughout the history of Chumash and always, so it seems like there is no set number for generations. Sometimes they say it's 20 years, sometimes 25 years. But with the easiest answer, especially to answer this question, is generations go by leaders, by who is the leader of the generation. So, for example, in the Shoftim, we have the Shoftim that were leaders. Some Shoftim were for a longer period, 40 years, some were only 6 or 7 years. So it seems like the generation continues by the next leader. As long as we have one leader, gets considered one long generation, even though he can be a leader for 80 years in some leaders. So, B'meila, that seems to be the pshat over here as well, that the Rebbe says our generation, meaning the Rebbe is our Nasi, and there isn't a time frame. It's a very, again, the question is better than the answer. Remember, as a Bachar, I asked on Ashpiyah the same question, and he said, who knows, maybe 50 years, maybe 100 years. We don't have any criteria. The Rebbe didn't give us clarity on numbers of years. He just said this is our generation. So how does that measured? I do not know the answer to that question. We have the firm emunah that this is the last generation, but years-wise, I don't have an answer. Question, is it better to wash your hands before davening, or is rinsing your hands enough? So here, I'm going to use the opportunity to share. Based on the basic Shulchan Aruch, so for Shachris in the morning, you have to wash your hands with a kvart. However, for Mincha and Ma'ariv, Shulchan Aruch seems to say very clearly, all you have to do is rinse your hands. You do not have to use a kvart. And this is what I've asked this question in the past, and this is what I've told people, and this is what I've been told this as well by other people too. Now we know the Rebbe would wash his hands for Mincha and Ma'ariv with a kvart 3 times. But as I heard from a number of great men, and even some of the rabbis I'm going to quote in a moment, that they said that this is the Rebbe's personal anhaga, which when it comes to copying the Rebbe, it's a big discussion, but something which the Rebbe did publicly all the time, it makes a lot of sense for people to want to copy the Rebbe. Something that the Rebbe, everyone saw Begilui in front of the Kol 770, you bring the Rebbe a special kvart and a shissel to wash from Mincha Ma'ariv. So something the Rebbe does publicly, it makes sense to follow the Rebbe's ways, but l'chayra, it's not something which you can say is halach and has to be. It's the Rebbe's private anhaga, which, again, you want to, you can, you don't want to, you don't have to. So one of my Talmidim was recently in a certain place, and he did what I told him to do. That I said, you have to wash your hands. And there was a Rav that was there, a very chashav Rav that I ask him questions all the time. And this Rav yelled at this bacher, "How you talking that you're not washing your hands with a kvart? Why only rinsing your hands?" So the bacher quoted me, but the Rav didn't hear me, but whatever. So the bacher called me up and told me, you should know that this Rav yelled at me because I followed what you said. So I called up the Rav. And I asked him, one of my Talmidim told me that he yelled at him, and based on my understanding, it's not needed. So he was hesitant for a moment, and he said that if you wash your hands for Mincha, and then you're sitting in your place in Shul, and you don't go anywhere till Ma'ariv, then it's enough to just rinse your hands. But throughout the day, you go to the bathroom, your hands touch places, in that case you have to wash with a kvart. That's what he told me, and just now over Yom Tov, my brothers were here, so I was just talking to my brothers, and I mentioned this conversation. So one of my brothers was shocked. He says he knows that Rav, and that Rav himself told him many years ago what I said before, that the Rebbe did as a private anhaga, but it's not necessary for everyone to do so. So it's a bit confusing for me. I'm not sure what the answer should be. Personally, since I heard that, I try to sometimes wash with a kvart a bit more to try to listen to what my Rav told me. But it seems like, again, based on the basic Shulchan Aruch, I think I'm still right. But I'm not going to argue with my Rav. You can ask your personal Rabban. When you wash your hands, you can be rinsed, and then the water can go around. You don't need for a kvart, and you don't have to wash the whole thing. He said a kvart and the whole thing. I don't know, whatever that could be. Kapanim, that's now we're going to have Chaim Yehuda share a few words in honor of the Kinus Torah.
So there's a Gemara in Kedushin says there's a mashal that a son gets a wound on his body, and he comes complaining to his father that he's hurt, and father tells him, he gives him a bandage, tells him you have to keep this bandage on you the whole time. And so long as the bandage is on, you can go run around and you can do what you want. But when you take the bandage off, then you have to be extra aware that you might end up getting boils, Ma'ila of Numi, and it's gonna end up getting much worse. And so long as you have this wound, you have to make sure you shower in the right temperature, you eat the proper foods, and the same thing. The nimshal, Hashem tells the Yidden, created you a Yetzer Hara. So long as you have this Yetzer Hara, I created you Yetzer Hara, and I created the Torah as Tavlin. Rasi the Yetzer Hara, Torah Tavlin. And if you learn the Torah, then you don't have to worry about the Yetzer Hara. If you don't learn Torah, then you have a problem to learn. Ma'ala of Numi. So the question here is that it seems like the mashal and the nimshal are really not they're really not comparable. Because first of all, the mashal, it's a bandage. The nimshal is speaking about tavlin, something which you eat. And it seems like from the nimshal, Hashem is basically saying to the Yidden, so long as you learn Torah, then you don't have to worry about any Yetzer Hara. Even when you're not learning Torah. As opposed to the mashal says as long as the bandage is on, then you have to be concerned. Once the bandage is taken off, then once you don't have to be concerned. Once the bandage is taken off, you do have to be concerned. And how does it work that when you're not learning Torah in the nimshal, that you don't have to worry about the Yetzer Hara? And also the Torah seems, how do we understand this statement that I created Yetzer Hara and it created the Torah as the Tavlin? And the Torah is the blueprint of the world. The Torah is Kadma La'elam, and we understand that it's much more beyond just fighting the Yetzer Hara. So there is a marsha that says that if somebody doesn't learn Torah, then they're Amma Aretz, and they're not going to be able to know the halachas, and they're going to end up doing what the Yetzer Hara tells them to do without even realizing that this is the wrong thing to do. And Lo Yam Aretz Chassid, and therefore, you got to learn Torah. But that it's still seemingly not enough, because even if you know the halachas, you can still choose to do the wrong thing. So this is the ara that I can. This is a promotion for Kevus Haaretz. This is and Shir Gimel. This question and the Shir Gimel. So so you can say there's the mashal basically and the nimshal are actually not similar. There's two ways we could go about doing the right thing. There's two ways we could go about learning Torah. You can learn Torah in a way of a bandage where at the time we're learning Torah, it's not so internalized, but since we're involved in it, so you don't have to worry about anything else happening because you're learning Torah. But there's another way of learning Torah, which is V'lo Yamar It's Chassid. If you do it like a Chassid, then even when you're not learning Torah specifically at that moment, you don't have to worry about a Yetzer Hara, which is when you learn Torah with in the way of Tavlin, where it becomes one with you. It's internalized. You connect your das to what you're learning, and when you connect the das to what you're learning, then that's a chassid. A chassid is aware of the fact that he's, like we learned in the Maimer now in Shavuos, that when we learn Torah, we have to be aware that this is Hashem. We become aware that Hashem is creating the world every single moment, and we become aware that we become aware of our true purpose and our true identity. And when we learn Torah in such a way that when we're learning it, we're becoming more and more aware of reality, of the true reality, then you see everything from a much wider perspective, a much different angle. And it's true that at that point, even when you're not learning, you're gonna take on the responsibility to be a chassid and do other things even though you're not learning, because everything is going to be calculated, but you're actually not going to have to worry about your Yetzer Hara. So, Chaim, no, Shlomo, you want to call up the next speaker? Mayor. Okay. Mayor,
okay. Make it quick. It's really small. Also, Ara. So I heard, I was listening to Shir, and he had a question. His name is Rabbi Krasinski, and he didn't have answers. So I was thinking maybe maybe I have an answer. So basically, you have two Rambams. Rambam number 1, it says about benching. How benching, it's a mitzvah deraisa. Okay, you have a mitzvah deraisa. You have to chata v'savata v'rachta. And you have another mitzvah according to the Rambam, also deraisa, is davening. The davening, it says izeh aveda shebalev, izeh tefillah. So it's also deraisa. And this is an interesting halacha that by benching, it's if you say it bal peh, you're yotzeh, and then by davening, you go back to the halachas of davening, that if you say it by your heart, if you just like think it by your heart, then you're not yotzeh. So the question is, seemingly it seems to be just the opposite. When it says by davening, which is avodah shebalev, so it says that you're not yotzeh, and by benching, you are yotzeh. So maybe you could answer that it itself, hagufa is the answer. By davening, there's there's this idea that by it says kol ma'or kavana. When you say something, it brings up the kavana. So by davening, which you have to have the avodah shebalev, dafka, that's why you need to have the voice, because you really need to have the kavana. So you need to have the kol ma'or kavana. And by benching, it says v'chatav svata v'rachta. Make sure to bench. You know, if it's inside your heart, or you're just thinking about it, you actually say the words, it doesn't really make so much of a difference. But the main idea is that you should have the benching going. And by davening, you should actually be you should actually make sure to say the words. So Tag, we should say the words. Huh? Oh no, it's gonna take too long.